Okay, we have the next couple chapters of Fantastic Mr. Fox, and then we're going to do a prediction writing. Do you know what a prediction is? It's a big word for guess. So we're going to make a guess about what happens next. So I'm going to read you a couple chapters, and then we will make a guess. That big word is prediction. Okay? Where we left off, the foxes were digging away from the shovels, and then our next chapter is called The Terrible Tractors. So chapter 5, The Terrible Tractors. Make pictures with your brain while I am reading to you. As the sun rose the next morning, Bogus, Bunce, and Bean were still digging. They had dug a hole so deep you could have put a house into it, but they had not come to the end of the fox's tunnel. They were very tired and cross. Cross means angry, so they were very tired and mad and angry. Dang and blast, said Bogus. Whose rotten idea was this? Bean's idea, said Bunce. Bogus and Bunce both stared at Bean. Bean took a swig of his apple juice and then put the flask back in his pocket without offering it to the others. Listen, he said angrily. I want that fox. I'm going to get that fox, and I'm not giving in until I've strung him up over my front porch, dead as a dumpling. We can't get him by digging, that's for sure, said the fat Bogus. I've had enough of digging. Bunce, the little pot-bellied dwarf, looked up at Bean and said, Have you got any more ideas, then? What? Said Bean. I can't hear you. Bean never took a bath. He never even washed. As a result, his ear holes were clogged with all kinds of muck and wax and bits of chewing gum and dead flies and stuff like that. This made him deaf. Speak louder, he said to Bunce, and Bunce shouted back, Got any more ideas? Bean rubbed the back of his neck with a dirty finger. He had a boil coming there and it itched. What we need on this job, he said, is machines. Mechanical shovels. We'll have him out in 5 minutes with mechanical shovels. This was a pretty good idea, the other two had to admit it. All right, then, Bean said, taking charge. Bogus, you stay here and see that the fox doesn't escape. Bunce and I will go fetch our machinery, and if he tries to get out, shoot him quick. The long, thin Bean walked away. The tiny Bunce trotted after him. The fat Bogus stayed where he was, with his gun pointing at the foxhole. Soon, 2 enormous tractors with mechanical shovels on their front ends came clanking into the wood. Bean was driving one, Bunce the other. The machines were both black. They were murderous, brutal-looking monsters. Here we go, then, said Bean. Death to the fox, shouted Bunce. The machines went to work, biting huge mouthfuls of soil of the hill. The big tree under where Mr. Fox had dug his hole in the first place was toppled like a matchstick. On all sides, rocks sent flying, trees were falling, and the noise was deafening. Down in the tunnel, the foxes crouched, listening to the terrible clanging and banging overhead. What's happening, Dad? Cried one of the small foxes. What are they doing now? Mr. Fox didn't know what was happening, or what they were doing. It's an earthquake, cried Mrs. Fox. Look, said one of the small foxes. Our tunnel got shorter. I can see daylight. They all looked around, and yes, the mouth of the tunnel was only a few feet away from them now. And in the circle of daylight beyond, they could see 2 huge black tractors almost on top of them. Tractors, shouted Mr. Fox, and mechanical shovels! Dig for your lives! Dig, dig, dig! Chapter 6 is called The Race. Now there began a desperate race, the machines against the foxes. In the beginning, the hill looked like this. There's a picture here. So in the beginning, the hill looked like this, and that's the next picture. Less of a hill. And after about an hour, the machines bit away more and more of soil from the hilltop. It looked like a valley. Sometimes the foxes would gain a little ground, and the clanking noise would grow fainter. And Mr. Fox would say, We're going to make it! I'm sure we are! But then a few moments later, the machines would come back, and the crunch of the mighty shovels would get louder and louder. Once the foxes actually saw the sharp metal edge of the shovels as it scraped away the earth just behind them. Keep going, my darlings, panted Mr. Fox. Don't give up. Keep going, the fat Bogus shouted to Bunce and Bean. We'll get him any moment now. Have you caught sight of him yet? Bean called back. Not yet, shouted Bogus, but I think you're close. I'll pick him up with my bucket, shouted Bunce. I'll chop him to pieces. By lunchtimes, the machines were still at it, and so were the poor foxes. Now, the hill looked like this. Doesn't look like a hill at all. The farmers didn't stop for lunch. They were too keen to finish the job. "Hey there, Mr. Fox," yelled Bunce, leaning out his tractor. "We're coming to get you now. You've had your last chicken," yelled Bogus. "You'll never come prowling around my farm again." A sort of madness had taken hold of the three men. The tall, skinny Bean and the dwarfish, pot-bellied Bunce were driving their machines like maniacs, racing the motors and making the shovels dig at terrific speed. The fat Bogus was hopping about like a devilish and shouting, "Faster, faster!" By 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the hill didn't look like a hill anymore. The hole the machines had dug was like a crater of a volcano. It was such an extraordinary sight that crowds of people came rushing out. Oh my goodness. Keep yawning, I'm so sorry. It was such an extraordinary sight that crowds of people rushing out from the surrounding villages came to have a look. They stood on the edge of the crater and they stared down at Bogus, Bunce, and Bean. "Hey there, Bogus, what's going on?" "We're after a fox." "You must be mad," the people laughed. But this only made the three farmers more furious and more obstinate and more determined than ever to not give up until they had caught the fox. Chapter 7 is called "We'll Never Let Him Go." At 6 o'clock in the evening, Bean switched off the motor of his tractor and climbed down from the driver's seat. Bunce did the same. Both men had enough. They were tired and stiff from driving the tractors all day. They were also hungry. Slowly they walked over to the small fox's hole in the bottom of the huge crater. Bean's face was purple with rage. Bunce was cursing the fox with dirty words that cannot be printed. Bogus came waddling up. "Dang and blast that filthy fox," he said. "What the heck do we do now?" "I tell you what we don't do," Bean said. "We don't let him go." "We'll never let him go," Bunce declared. "Never, never, never," cried Bogus. "Did you hear that, Mr. Fox?" yelled Bean, bending down and shouting into the hole. "It's not over yet, Mr. Fox. We're not going home until we strung you up dead as a dingbat." Whereupon the three men all shook hands with one another and swore a solemn oath that they would not go back to their farms until the fox was caught. "What's the next move?" asked Bunce, the pot-bellied dwarf. "We're sending you down the hole to fetch him up," said Bean. "Down you go." "Not me!" screamed Bunce, running away. Bean made a sickly smile. When he smiled, you could see his scarlet gums. You saw more gums than teeth. "Then there's only one thing to do. We starve him out. We camp here day and night, watching the hole. He'll come out in the end. He'll have to." So Bogus, Bunce, and Bean sent messages down to their farms asking for tents, sleeping bags, and supper. One more chapter. Chapter 8 is called "The Foxes Begin to Starve." That evening, the three tents were put in the crater on the hill. One for Bogus, one for Bunce, and one for Bean. The tents surrounded Mr. Fox's hole, and the three farmers sat outside their tents eating their supper. Bogus had 3 boiled chickens smothered in dumplings. Bunce had 6 donuts filled with disgusting goose liver paste. And Bean had 2 gallons of apple juice, and all 3 of them kept their guns beside them. Bogus picked up a steaming chicken, held it close to the hole. "Can you smell this, Mr. Fox? Lovely, tender chicken. Why don't you come up and get it?" The rich scent of chicken wafted down the tunnel where the foxes were crouching. "Oh, Dad," said one of the small foxes, "couldn't we just sneak up and snatch it out of his hand?" "Don't you dare," said Mrs. Fox. "That's just what they want you to do." "But we're so hungry," they cried. "How long will it be till we get something to eat?" Their mother didn't answer them, nor did their father. There was no answer to give. As darkness fell, Bunce and Bean switched on the powerful headlamps of the 2 tractors and shone them into the hole. "Now," said Bean, "we'll take turn keeping watch. 1 watches while 2 sleeps, and so on through the night." Bogus said, "What if the fox digs a hole right through the hill and it comes out the other side? You didn't think of that one, did you?" "Of course I did," said Bean, pretending he did. "Go on, then. Tell us the answer," Bogus said. Bean picked something small and black out of his ear and flicked it away. "How many men have you got working on your farm?" he said. 35, Bogus said. "I've got 36, said Bunce. "And I've got 37, Bean said. "That makes 108 men altogether. We must order them to surround the hill. Each man will have a gun and a flashlight, and there will be no escape for Mr. Fox." So the order went down to the farms, and that night 108 men formed a tight ring around the bottom of the hill. They were armed with sticks and guns and hatchets and pistols and all sorts of other horrible weapons. This made it quite impossible for a fox, indeed, for any other animal, to escape from the hill. The next day, the watching and waiting went on. Bogus, Bunce, and Bean sat up small stools staring at the fox's hole. They didn't talk much. They just sat there with their guns on their laps. Every so often, Mr. Fox would creep a little closer towards the mouth of the tunnel and take a sniff. Then he would creep back and say, "They're still there." "Are you quite sure?" Mrs. Fox said. "Positive," said Mr. Fox. "I can smell that bean from a mile away. He stinks." So our next chapter, we're about halfway done the book. Our next chapter is called Mr. Fox Has a Plan. So for writing today, I want you to write what you think Mr. Fox's plan will be. So right now they're stuck in that hole. They're hungry. And the hill is surrounded. So he has a plan to escape. What do you think he's going to do? I drew the farmer in a valley, and then I think what Mr. Fox is going to do is dig with his family super far away from the hill and escape. So I wrote, I think Mr. Fox will sneak his family out and move away. I think they're going to move away and never see Bogus Buns and Bean again. So that's what I think. I'm interested to hear what you think his plan is. And next time we read this, we will find out what the plan is. Okay, so make your guess, your prediction, and send me your writing today. I hope you are enjoying this book. Yeah, like I said, we're halfway done, so it gets really exciting soon. I hope you like it. Talk to you soon.